why is Jerusalem actually still there? Think about that. It's in the Middle East. Most countries would love to just wipe Israel off of the map, and they actually should be able to. Israel is a tiny little country, but it's amazing that God says, nope, never going to happen, because Israel is his. It will always be there until the return of Jesus, because that is where he will reign from. Join us today to see why that's so important in Psalm 48. All right, good morning. Welcome to our Psalm series. As always, we say we're glad you're joining us, and we actually are. Today I want to talk about this statement and this beautiful picture behind me, Jerusalem. Like, there's just nothing more beautiful when you're there, especially when you see pictures like this. But think about this. If you are a real estate person, you're going to think location, location, location. One time, many years ago, before Zillow was around, we saw this house on like MLS or something like that, and it had a picture. All you had is one little picture of what the house looked like. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's so cool, Rob, we should go look at it. So when we went to go, the problem is the house looked great, but everything around it didn't look that great at all. It was a really nice house, but it was in a really bad location. So today, Psalm 48, it's about the greatest location on this earth, Jerusalem, the city of God. But here is what's so amazing, is that it makes no sense that Jerusalem is actually still there. I want you to look at this map right here. Now, you can see it's this huge map. You see China, you see right in the middle over there, sort of towards the left, is going to be Iran, and then Saudi Arabia below it. And then you see Turkey a little bit farther left. You go down Syria, you go down to Israel. You can't even see it. Israel is this little teeny tiny sliver right there that you have to like kind of get a magnifying glass to see. It's actually just a little bit bigger than New Jersey, all right? But it's hard to find on a map because it's so tiny. But how is it possible that little baby Israel with little baby Jerusalem is like the epicenter of the world? And I think it's because Jerusalem is the city of God. Because in reality, had it not been the city of God and this place that God says, this is mine, Israel should have been wiped off the map years ago. Look at all the people surrounding it. Turkey, Iran, Iraq, Saudi Arabia. These people hate Israel. They want Israel to be gone. But Israel's not going anywhere, and it never will, because God is protecting it for the return of Jesus. Before the return of Jesus, a third temple will have to be built on that Temple Mount behind me where that Dome of the Rock is. And what we hear and we read about in the Bible is that the Antichrist will desecrate this third temple during this tribulation period. And this is what's going to bring on the return of Jesus, but it all happens in Jerusalem. And the coolest part about it is that no one will ever destroy it, because God says, I have set my love on that city and that nation. Look at Zechariah 14:4. On that day, his feet, talking about Jesus, will stand on the Mount of Olives, east of Jerusalem. And the Mount of Olives will be split in two from east to west, forming a great valley, with half of the mountain moving north and half moving south. We see Jerusalem during the 1,000-year reign of Jesus on this earth. This is where he's going to reign. Look at Psalm 102:21. He said, so the name of the Lord will be declared in Zion, and his praise in Jerusalem, when the peoples in the kingdom assemble to worship the Lord. That is after he comes back and he's reigning on this earth. So today we're going to see this in Psalm 48. This goes along with the last two Psalms we've done, 46 and 47, because they're actually considered Zion songs, all right? All of these Psalms exalt God as King. They're Psalms of praise, of worship. And today we're going to see praise and worship in regards to this beautiful city behind me, Jerusalem. Psalm 48, let's start it there. A song, a psalm of the sons of Korah. Verse 1 says, "Great is the Lord and most worthy of praise in the city of our God, his holy mountain. It is beautiful in its loftiness, the joy of the whole earth. Like the utmost heights of Zaphon is Mount Zion, the city of the great King." Zion is a place, the name of it is usually a synonym or a substitute for Jerusalem. The word Zion is found first in the Bible in 2 Samuel 5. The king and his men marched to Jerusalem to attack the Jebusites who lived there. The Jebusites said to David, "You will not get in here. Even the blind and lame cannot ward you off." They thought David cannot get in here. Nevertheless, David captured the fortress of Zion, the city of David. I'm going to show you this picture here. As you can see the Temple Mount with, of course, the dome on the rock right there far up on the top. And you can see those little white dots. This is all the city of David. So you've got city of David, which is right there by the Temple Mount. I'll put this up on the screen. Zion was originally the name of an ancient Jebusite fortress in the city of Jerusalem. Jerusalem is built on four hills. Zion was the highest of the four hills. Mount Zion is synonymous with Mount Moriah, which is the site where, Abraham took Isaac and then laid him on the altar, and then, God came through. We also know that this is the place where Solomon built his temple in Jerusalem, and it was also where, when Jesus was on the earth, Herod's temple was. So this is the actual site. As you can see behind me, that's considered the Temple Mount back there, and that is what Jesus would have seen Herod's temple on there. Now, if you were Jewish or an Israelite back in the time of Solomon's temple or whenever, Jewish people, they glory in Jerusalem. But for them, it wasn't like this patriotic feeling. Like on July 4th in the United States, we sing like, "I'm proud to be an American," where at least I know I'm free. I won't sing it, trust me. "I won't forget the men who died, okay, who gave that right to me. And I'll gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. Because there ain't no doubt, I love this land. God bless the USA." Okay, we hear that song a lot. But for them, it wasn't just this patriotic, like, "God bless Israel," okay? Because it was different. They knew that this was God's abode. This was where his presence was. This was the city of God's presence. When King David brought the ark into Jerusalem, which, was at the time there was a tabernacle, and then it eventually would be Solomon's temple. But in the ark this is where God's presence was. I love what Gordon Curley said. He said this: "There may well have been other cities bigger in size, more secure against enemy attack, wealthier and more glamorous architecturally, but no other city could claim to be the dwelling place on earth of Almighty God." That's why Jerusalem is magnificent. Jesus talks about it in Matthew 5:34. He says, "But I tell you, do not swear at all, either by heaven, for it is God's throne, or by earth, for it is God's footstool, or by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great King." Even God says this is a really big deal. Jerusalem is a big deal. So, go on to verse 3 in our psalm today. Verse 3 says this: "God is in her citadels," talking about Jerusalem. "He has shown himself to be her fortress. When the kings joined forces, when they advanced together, they saw her and were astounded. They fled in terror. Trembling seized them there, pain like that of a woman in labor. You destroyed them like the ships of Tarshish, shattered by an east wind." The writer of this psalm just knew that when a king of another nation was trying to come up against Jerusalem, they're not going to win. They wouldn't win because God protected Jerusalem. People knew that that God was that powerful and this was his city. Now, we know that unless God was planning on disciplining the Jewish nation or the Israelites. We know that Solomon's temple in Jerusalem was destroyed by Nebuchadnezzar, but that was because the Israelites turned their back on God. They were bowing to false gods, worshiping idols in his beautiful city. And God said, enough's enough. And he allowed Nebuchadnezzar to come in and destroy the city. But for the most part, if God was not using the city to discipline the Israelites, God always protected his land. I always say that It will be one of the most protected places in the end time, because that's where Jesus will come and reign from. So we know Jerusalem will still be there. Verse 8 said this, as we have heard, as we have seen in the city of the Lord Almighty, in the city of our God, God makes her secure forever. Selah. It's like when you go to Israel for the first time, you see the Sea of Galilee and you know that Jesus was there, and you see the ruins underground of Solomon's temple in Jerusalem. You see the ruins in the city of David, and somehow you realize you're kind of standing on holy ground. History, biblical history comes alive. The Bible comes alive because you realize that just like most people only hear about it, now you see it. Look at verse 9. It says, within your temple, O God, we meditate on your unfailing love. Your unfailing love. They're so happy to be there amidst God. Look how awesome this is. Verse 1 says this, this is Jerusalem, the city of our God. Another part of that verse says, his holy mountain. Verse 2, the city of our great King. Verse 3, he is in her citadels. Verse 3b, he has shown himself to be her fortress. Verse 8, in the city of the Lord Almighty. Verse 8c, in the city of our God. Verse 9, within your temple, O God. Jerusalem, therefore, became the city of our God, the city of the greatest King. Verse 10 says this, like your name, O God, your praise reaches to the end of the earth. Your right hand is filled with righteousness. Mount Zion rejoices. The villages of Judah are glad because of your judgments. Walk about Zion, go around her, count her towers, consider well her ramparts, view her citadels, that you may tell them to the next generation. Someone wrote this, what makes Jerusalem so great? Archaeologists and historians have long wondered why Jerusalem should have been established where it was, and why it should have become great. It enjoys none of the physical features which favored the advancement and prosperity of other important cities in the world. It stands at the head of no great river. It overlooks no great harbor. It commands no great highway and no crossroads. It is not close to abundant sources of water. It possesses no mineral riches. It was off the main trade routes. It held no strategic key to the conquest of vast areas. Indeed, it was blessed with neither special economic nor topographic virtues which might explain why it should have ever become more than a small, anonymous mountain village with a fate any different from that of most contemporary villages, which have long since vanished. But God, that is why Jerusalem stands today. And then the psalm ends with an encouraging verse. For this God is our God forever and ever. He will be our guide even to the end. God is our guide ever, even to the end. He will guide us to our new home eternally. And that is the most amazing news ever. But what we can see is Jerusalem reminds us of the fact that God is really serious about his word. And he keeps his promises. So let's not forget that today. Hope that helps. Have a really good day.